Alright, so moving on to the next step, and in this one we are going to add in some shaker loops and we are going to quickly take a look at grooves. So going back to our course files folder, samples, and look for PML shaker loop 1. And down here we have an audio track prepared, and now we are going to use this sample on this audio track. I'm dragging it over onto the track in the arrangement view. And if we double click, we see the clip down here. It's automatically warped. That means adjusted to our track tempo. And we have it looped already. And by default, the sample has beats per minute of 120. And this is what we're going to work with. Since it's looped, I can see the brackets here and drag it along over the course of bar 17 to bar 25. Now I actually want to loop this bar, so I'm using these locators up here. I'm dragging them over and I'm adjusting this one. You see we recorded a bit too long here, but don't worry too much about that. So the first thing we want to do is bring down the gain a little on that one because it looks fairly loud. It's recorded almost at peak here. So I'm bringing it down, -16, to see what it sounds like. And let's play it from here. I'm hitting Command L to loop this section. We can also activate or deactivate our loop up here. And okay, I'm actually going to hide a bit of my bass and a bit of my pad and scroll up a little bit. Actually, I want to color this differently. Right click and select white. And now actually I want this clip to occur white as well. So I'm right clicking again, assign track color to clips. And now this one is showing white as well. So let's actually just play this loop together with our drums. I'm taking bass and pad off for a moment. So deactivate those two tracks and play back what we have. Actually just play shaker loop and kick. And drum rack off. So this is the groove we are working with. And if we compare to the groove we already have playing in our drum rack, turning this one off, turning this one on here, and play this one. So they kind of have a different type of groove here. And if we're going back to the shaker, we see, it's not really on grid all the time. This one seems to be a bit late compared to the grid, and this one seems to be on spot over here, or quite on spot, pretty much. So an interesting thing with Ableton and when working with drums is working with groove. Because what we could do now, we could try to apply the groove of this sample on our hi-hats up here. How do we do that? Right click onto the sample and extract groove. Click into this area. Now we've extracted the groove of this sample and we could go ahead and apply it on our hi-hat pattern here in our MIDI clip. How do we do that? Two different ways of doing it. You can open the groove pool, which is hiding behind this little knob here. And since we just extracted the shaker loop groove, it's now showing up here with groove name PML shaker loop 1. And I can drag this over and commit it to this drum rack MIDI clip. And now it even says here in the clip area, groove PML shaker loop 1. And Let's solo our drum rack for a second. Well, it's kind of bumpy. Let's select none. Notice the difference? Much more straightforward that way and much more stuttery with the PML Shaker loop groove. So it's kind of a cool feature because you can extract grooves from an audio recording and apply it to something MIDI. And we could even go one step further and say, hey, you know what? I actually want to see what is happening in my MIDI pattern here. So I can say select PML Shaker Loop 1 groove and commit to it. And now this happened. You see, this one is coming in late. And it's late here again. And it's late here again. Let's just undo what I did with that commit button. Look at this area. See, it's going back. So the thing with applying grooves from an audio sample is sometimes, if we are going back to the sample, this warp function doesn't work perfectly on the audio sample, and you might be getting a quite stuttery groove here if you commit to it. But we have a groove library available in Ableton as well. If we are going to this groove area here, groove pool area, open up and right click, browse groove library. We will go into our swing and groove library, and actually what we want to do is skip hip hop, Latin percussion and logic. We are going to MPC and we have predefined grooves ready. And let me scroll down. We are looking for MPC 16 for 16's notes. We want some swing to it, and we are going to pick up swing 58. You can preview all of these. So you always have a different kind of groove here. We're going to pick up swing 58 and put it into our groove pool. And once we have it in our groove pool, we can go back to our drums clip and we can drag it over and commit to it, or we can just select it here. As soon as it's part of the groove pool, I can also pick it up here. Select MPC 16 swing 58, play, and I can commit to it so we see the changes. See how it's moving to the back here, and again here, and again here, and again here. Undo and commit again. And you might be wondering, so what happens to the clap? The clap seems to be remaining in its original position, and that's due to the fact that these swing groups keep the first position and the third position. They're just changing the second and the fourth one. And you can see that here. We are not really changing our clap at any moment. We are just applying always some changes to the second and to the fourth element. So playing it together with our kick. Sounds nice and groovy. Putting the bass and pad back in. And actually I'm holding command if I want to solo, so play together several of these tracks. I'm holding command and adding solo on the bass and on the pad. This is exactly the same thing as doing this. So several ways. Sometimes it's easier to do it with solo, depending on how many tracks you have. Let's actually keep the pad off and focus on what the shaker will do to our overall sound. Play it together with the drum rack and the shaker. Okay, and finally we also want to check if the new groove on our drums pattern goes well with our shaker loop. So our shaker loop being this one. And actually, as we saw in our swing groove analysis, the first position and the third position remain the same, while the fourth position and the second position are moved a little backwards. And we can actually see that in the waveform of our shaker loop. So this part here is actually one grid point late, and this one as well. And therefore, it works well with this hi-hat here, which is late in the second position, and it's late in the third position. So these two grooves don't contradict each other, but they go along nicely. Okay, just brought this down a bit more because it's still quite loud. Putting our pad back into it. Alright, so we added this shaker loop and we added grooves and took a look at groove pools here. I'm closing it and we're moving on to the next element.